All right, good morning. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to our first 2021 Higher Moment Mastermind. We are delighted to have you all back with us. Those who are old timers, new timers, welcome. My name is Shira Lotzar. I am a career coach and association recruiter and a branding expert, and I love to help people top grade their resumes and their LinkedIn profiles and boost their networking and interviewing. I'm also the co-founder and volunteer of boomerworks.org. We exist exclusively to help professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment. All of our programs are free. Check it out. Love to invite our guest experts to the scene here. Julien Bois is an executive recruiter with accounting and finance. Corliss Jackson, she is all things federal government resumes. KiKi L'Italien, who's the queen of video and social media. Vern Schellenger, who is unfortunately not able to be with us today, but he should be back next week, and he's a master networker and relationship builder. And Weech, who is an amazing HR and recruiting executive in the government contracting sector. So welcome, everyone. So for today's session, which is as per usual for those of you who have been with us for a while, we are going to start out with a 10-minute breakout session. And in that breakout session, you're going to be identifying your group's top question for the remainder of our discussion. But also, please feel free to share any power lessons. So tips that you have gleaned along the way of your job search. They could be links and resources, tools, and things that you do that make your job search extra successful. And make sure that you wait until you get back to the main room to post any questions into the chat box. Otherwise, we're not going to see them if you post them in your Zoom room. And then we're going to have a group discussion for about 40 minutes or so. And then at 10 o'clock, we will have a 15-minute speed networking breakout session. Please, please, please consider sticking around for that. So many people have found such terrific connections, and not only connections within the group, but then they've found other groups as a result of those connections. And we've just heard a lot of great success stories. Please keep in touch with our Power Networking spreadsheet. It's a Google Doc. You can just put in your contact information to stay in touch. Here's the bit.ly. Once we come back into the main room, I'll put that into the chat. And then if you would like to see a recording, or anybody else you know would like to see a recording of today's session, it's here on my website at that link. I will put that in the chat box. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into breakout rooms. So give me just a minute while I assign you guys there. All right, and make sure to hit the blue join button, and you will be put into your rooms.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Kelly. Hopefully you see your room. Good. And for those who are watching this via recording, please feel free to fast forward 10 minutes, and then you can join us back in the main room. Greg, just making sure that you saw your Zoom room. You don't have to join, just making sure that you saw it. Hey there, those who just joined us, hi there. I'm going to be putting you into our breakout room. People are in a room for about 10 minutes. Renee, is that you? Hi, Sheila. We're in breakout rooms for another few minutes, so I'm going to assign you one right now. Hey, Ruth. We're in a breakout rooms for another couple of minutes. So I'm going to assign you to one. Hey, Greg, did you want to go back and go into a breakout room for another minute, or did you want to stay out here? You're on mute.
I'll stay out here, thanks.
Sure thing. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Hope that was a rousing first networking experience for you where you got to share some power tips and some questions with each other. So as we get going here, feel free to put your questions here in the chat box. This is the great time to do that. Before we get going in the open Q&A, I just wanted to list in the chat box a couple of resources for you. So remember in the beginning, I'd mentioned that we have a power networking spreadsheet for those of you who joined a little bit after my introduction. That is a Google Doc where you guys can put in your contact information to stay in touch with each other. And a recording of this session will also be found in the link that I just put in there. Did also want to share a new resource that some people may not even be aware of. And that is that here in the DC area, there is a group called the Washington Network Group, and they have actually for a long time have been posting jobs on a career board. And I just got it and I'd forgotten about it completely. And so I wanted to put the link here for those who are interested. It has a wide variety of jobs. And also wanted to mention to you that next week, and I'll share this in a second here, myself and KiKi L'Italien and another friend of ours, Allison, is we're going to be hosting a little virtual webinars for free. and it is called Reframe Your Personal Style for a Virtual World. It's going to be on January 13th at 12:30 Eastern for an hour, and the three of us are going to share all of our tips and tricks for how to maximize those little rectangle on your screen. How do you show up, right, in this whole new Zoom world, from your background to your attire to your body language, and how do you want to show your personality? So we already have 132 registrants, if you can believe it. So come on, there's more to the party. The registration link is down here, so feel free to take a screenshot of that, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. All right, so with that, would like to go ahead and open this up to questions. So for the next half hour or so, we're here, myself and my colleagues who I introduced earlier are here to answer your job search questions. So with that, do we have anything in the chat box yet? I don't think so. So since we don't, let's go ahead and just open the lines. So who has a question that they would like to share with us, and we'll go ahead and start running through them.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So somebody mentioned something recently regarding LinkedIn, that when you don't have a current position, that might impact the way you appear on search. And they were suggesting that, you know, if you are looking for your next adventure, you should consider creating a new position with like a seeking whatever title you want, so that's what we show as current when they would do a search on LinkedIn. So I wonder if you had any thoughts.
That's a great question. First of all, LinkedIn continually changes its algorithms. Okay, so it's a little hard to say exactly how accurate that is. I'm not saying it's inaccurate, but I'm not sure how much. What I can tell you is that LinkedIn very much is focused on keywords. Okay, so when somebody is doing a search, and by the way, for those who aren't familiar with this, so in LinkedIn, in the upper left-hand box, there's a search bar. It's hidden in plain sight. Most people don't even know it's there, but we recruiters and salespeople actually use it extensively. And that search bar is where we can all put keywords in, and you guys can use it too to find each other and to find recruiters. And in that search bar, we put in those keywords. So let's say we're looking for an accountant, or we're looking for a marketing professional, or somebody with a PMP, or what have you. We'll put those search terms in. Now, what LinkedIn does is when they are going through to pull up the right people, they're going to start at the headline. So whatever you put in your headline underneath your picture is the very first keyword that LinkedIn is going to look at to then pull up that list for whoever's doing the search. Then it'll go to your job title and so forth. Now, as far as, you know, whether you should have something that's, you know, seeking new opportunities, look, to me, that's less important than having the right keywords in there, right? So in other words, if you have a brand, if you want people to know that you're in a certain industry or in a certain profession, you want to, have certain certifications, you want to make sure that in your headline, it's clearly there. In your about section, that you've got those keywords peppered in throughout. As far as whether having the title, that to me is more of a subtlety around, you know, letting people know that that you're active in your search. So for example, somebody, you know, let's say you're doing some consulting work, even if it's pro bono, that's a good thing to put in your you know, while you're looking for a role. So let's say you left your last position sometime last year and you've been doing any sort of volunteer work or consulting, anything like that, you can certainly put that in there. My opinion is, in putting seeking new opportunities, let's put it this way, a recruiter is going to find you if they're looking for you and you've got the profile that they want, regardless of whether you put that you're seeking new opportunities. Even if you're gainfully employed, they're still going to reach out to you. So I'm not of the opinion that you should put the seeking new opportunities per se. Sometimes that can come off as a little bit desperate. We want you to kind of have a strong position. But with that said, do any of my facilitator colleagues have any comments on that particular question around you know, whether you should, you know, put the seeking new opportunities?
Before somebody else jump, I just wanted to add that they did the demonstration using the LinkedIn Recruiter, and in there they have a feature where when you do your search for a keyword, you decide whether you want current position and past position. It just so happened that the default is current.
So, I'm confused about the question. Can you?
No, so I'm saying that you know, I agree with you that the recruiter is looking for keyword.
Yes.
But the person that was telling us about this new feature used LinkedIn Recruiter.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And then they say that, you know, that you input the keyword and you choose whether you want a current or pass, and pass and current. And, the default is current.
That's true.
Yeah, when the default is current, then if you are not current, then you don't appear on the search.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But even if you were to put seeking new opportunities, that still wouldn't show up as current because you're not in that kind of a role. So at the end of the day, look, it all depends on how the recruiter does their search. And what Jean is talking about right now is when a person is doing a search, they can filter the search. There's something called the all filters button. And in the all filters button, there's all these different fields. And in the fields, one of them says current, if they're looking for someone with current experience or past experience. And oftentimes that has to do with whether the person is currently working for a particular company, because what recruiters often will do is they want to pull somebody from an existing company and pull them into their company. Let's say it's a competitor. It really depends on how the recruiter decides to do their search. Some do actually look at past experience. So that's hard to say, but all I can tell you is the more current your keywords are, the more accurate the search results are going to be on the other side. Okay, so other questions. KiKi, do we have anything in the chat here?
We do. So we have, what is the time frame for new federal job postings and hiring in relation to the administration transfer later this month?
Corliss, I'm going to toss that one to you. Corliss is our federal resume expert.
Yeah, so usually when there's a change in changing of the guard, if you will, the new administration will wait a little bit just to kind of see what the landscape looks like before they start doing what they're going to do. They've already given us indications that there will be a lot more federal hiring and a lot more federal contracts. So I think that's a good thing for everybody, both private sector and federal sector. Normally what happens is around the beginning of April, they'll post the jobs that they want to push. But you will see that this week in particular, because the budget was recently passed, that a lot of jobs that were out on the street, they are actually interviewing now. So folks are getting called this week for interviews for applications that they put in December and November, as well as October as well. So sometimes there's a slowdown before the budget is passed. And then once the budget gets passed, things will pick up tremendously because everybody's in the pipeline who they want to move forward. And then once the budget gets signed off on, they'll go forward really quickly and strong with interviews and then offers. So you don't want to wait till things kind of get to a place where you think they should be. You want to be in the pipeline already. So I would say that now is a good time, because if you want to, for the next 6 months, agencies are going to be spending money that they should have spent from October to December. And now they're trying to play catch up. So they're going to do double duty for the next couple months. And then after the new administration decides what jobs they want to hire for, that'll be the big push to the end of the fiscal year. So there's going to be a lot of activity in the federal sector, and that will spill over to the corporate sector, I think, as well.
Thanks, Corliss. All right, and before we move on to other questions from the group, I did want to mention that there was an advanced question prior to today. Someone filled out on our questionnaire, and I'm going to read it and just let you know that myself and some of the facilitators, we had a conversation about this before the call, so we have some opinions on it. And here's the question. How much work experience do I need to include on my resume versus in the ATS? ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. That's the database that recruiters use. So how much experience do I need to include on my resume versus in the ATS employment experience section? My relevant experience is about 13 years. However, my career started 30 plus years ago with a 10-year gap to raise my kids. My resume reflects the 13 years. However, all of my experience is on my LinkedIn page. So here's the thing. Generally speaking, you want to make sure that, at least this is my opinion, you want to make sure that what is on your resume and what you fill out in the application are the same. Now, there are variations here. So for example, you might have a certain title on your resume, and maybe that title didn't exactly reflect what you were doing. You could ostensibly put in a different kind of a title, not a higher title, but a title that is more reflective of what you've done, with the understanding that you're going to explain it to the employer. What I generally recommend, and I will address the gap in a second, what I generally recommend if you're going to do something like that is I usually put an asterisk, right? So let's say it's on your resume and that the title that you had is not really the reflective of what you did. You can put in a more reflective title with a little asterisk, and at the bottom, actually explain what your official title was. You could do that on the applicant tracking system as well. But when it comes to the gap, look, most employers want to know if there's a gap. They want to know, they want you to account for the gap, if at all possible. Because if you don't account for the gap, their minds can wander in directions you don't want them to wander in. So one of the best ways you could do that is simply to say, in that gap period, personal sabbatical. Now that's both on your resume as well as on the applicant tracking system, personal sabbatical, if you had one of those. That said, you don't have to. In fact, I recommend not going back 30 years, because then you get all kinds of age discrimination that could be popping up. So broadly speaking, my suggestion is fill it out just like you would fill it on your resume. If you have that gap, fill out that particular section in that job, if you will, in the experience section of the application, personal sabbatical. You want to go back a little bit further than that, that's fine, but I wouldn't go back to 30 years because of age discrimination. So with that, Joe or Julien, we were talking about this. Anything you want to add to that to kind of round out that perspective?
And we definitely had a comment this morning, of somebody who had 28 years in one company. So because the industry, that the person worked in, I felt like that would not be a detractor, and you can't actually minus out years in one company. So I would say that in that particular instance, that would be an exception, but I also think too that people have to think about the gap, if any of those things that they did were even remotely relevant. And if they are, just include them, on your resume, but they don't really have to be put on the application, because that can just come up in conversation. Previous related experiences. They are not looking on that application for a document of every single job you ever did,
Back to babysitting.
Right.
Right. Just whatever you put, make sure it's accurate, but you don't have to go back till the beginning of time. Mary Beth, I know you're the one who asked the question.
Yeah, if I could I'd just follow up on that. So.
Oh, we just lost you. Your audio went out.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
When I was putting this in ATS, it wasn't different from the resume, but you couldn't tell that, I graduated from college 30 years ago, because my experience went back 15 years and then I had the dates for college. I don't want to be dishonest, but is that legitimate?
Well,
that doesn't show a gap.
First of all, there's no reason why you have to put your dates for college. And
Right,
actually, in fact, I wouldn't recommend that you do that. Because many people are traditional 4-year grads, and a lot of people start college right after the age at 18. Right. So they're going to make those assumptions. I actually would recommend for people over 45 to take off the years of experience, to take off the graduation dates anyway. So then they're not going to see a gap, because they're just not going to.
Right. Okay. And then one other question related to the ATS. I know in Maryland, they can't ask your age, but what I found last night when I was doing this is it was asking for skills and your proficiency and how many years you had had those skills.
There's nothing wrong with that per se, because that's not, most people aren't going to say that I have 30 years of experience in X, although if you do, just do something less, like 15.
Right. Okay.
Because you at least have the 15. It's fine.
I can be honest to a fault.
Exactly. Yeah, you want
you.
de-ageify your resume. I will say though that, and Corliss, I know you and I've had an offline conversation about this once or twice. The federal government is the only institution that, which is ironic, that actually requires people, unless they've taken it off, that actually requires people to list when they graduated high school. Corliss, is that still the case, or did they take it off? They took it off?
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Oh, yes. Okay, because for so many years they did. We didn't understand why, so they changed it. Yay. All right, great. Thanks for the update.
So Shira, just to follow up on Maria inquiry there. So since you said earlier that the resume should be a mirror of the LinkedIn profile now, and then it is always advised to put 15 to 20 years on the resume. So should we just limit the LinkedIn experience to mirror what we have the resume there?
Yeah. So I'm going to put a slight caveat to that. So on your LinkedIn, because here's the thing with LinkedIn, you can't eliminate your years of experience. It's a required field. You have to put the years. Your resume, of course, you don't. So what I recommend is with your LinkedIn, go back about, I'd say 15 years or so. You can go back the equivalent on your resume. However, if you have more experience that you would like to list on your resume, but you don't want to put the dates, simply have your chronology of your experience down to about 15 years. Underneath that, have a section that says prior experience. Again, this is for your resume. Prior experience, and then list company title, no dates. Maybe a little description if you want. And only do that if you really, really feel like that prior experience is extremely germane to the kind of role that you're currently seeking. Maybe there's some, you started in a certain part of the sector and it's going to be very relevant for people. For example, I once worked with a coaching client, and she was in the communications field, and she started her early career as a journalist. And she was like a Pulitzer Prize winner right back then. And it was just like a really interesting part of her story that she wanted people to know because it's part of her background. So we had her listed without putting the dates of employment, but just that it was there. Okay. But be very circumspect. If you're actually going to list the earlier stuff, make sure to just tuck it away, but you don't have to put that on LinkedIn. All right.
Julien has his hand up.
I'm sorry, who does?
Julien,
yes.
I just wanted to address this before the session is over, but we had someone in our group who came from the retail sector, and obviously the retail sector has been impacted quite a bit. So, and that goes not just for people with retail experience, but also overall. I don't know how many of you knows that McKinsey Scott donated recently $4.2 billion to nonprofits. And there's a list of those nonprofits that received. Now, of course, most of those $4.2 billion are going to go to their cause, right? But there is an administrative cost, and it's anywhere between 5 to 8%. So that translates into about $200 to $300 million worth of employment that they're going to be doing this month. So if you're on the list of that, you go to mackenzie-scott.medium.com, and you will see all those. So, for example, this lady is currently located in Houston. I told her to look at the Houston Area Food Bank. Actually, Houston Area Food Bank did not get money, but I looked it up, and Goodwill of Houston and the United Way of Houston area did receive quite a few $1 million. So they're going to be hiring. And I know locally it's the same thing. So you can look at all the United Ways, YMCAs, Goodwill, etc. They're all going to be hiring this month because they got a huge shot in the arm.
And not only that, thanks for bringing that up, Julien, but I also even anecdotally can share with you, because as a lot of you know, I'm both a career coach and a recruiter, so I still recruit. And I've seen employers who are right now particularly sensitive to hiring people who were affected by COVID in general. There's sort of this compassion out there in the employment world. So please don't feel embarrassed by that at all. This is just such a common issue. And also people who are particularly impacted by, whether it's retail, restaurants, airport, all of those really particularly impacted industries. So there's a lot of sensitivity in the market right now amongst employers, for you folks. Okay, so KiKi.
We have several questions, including one that was sent to me that was from someone who I think just didn't want to have their name called out, but I want to go in order. So on LinkedIn, don't you have to put your year of college graduation?
No, you have to put your years of employment, not your years of college graduation.
And okay, so, and there was a nice discussion about that. This is for the people who watch later, who don't get the benefit of seeing the chat. There was a nice discussion back and forth about why that is and what you can do, but in the chat. But Mary Beth asked, would you put the name of the organization you volunteer for in the headline?
In the headline? Not necessarily. The only time I would recommend doing that only if it's directly related to your brand, right? Now, instead of putting it in your headline, I put it actually as your current experience. So, in the experience section, if you're trying to account for the time since you've been laid off, simply say, volunteer with, you could put a little, whatever the title is, you can make up, ask them if you can make up a title, whatever, and say volunteer with this organization and what you do. And that'll at least show people that you're being active during your search. Yeah, but I wouldn't put it in your headline unless it's related to your brand.
Okay, so we have the next one that I have is, what does someone put under personal sabbatical on application or resume that you were a stay-at-home mom? What do you put there?
Great question. We had a little bit of debate on this, actually. We talked about this in our conversation, our pre-call before this morning. So here, my recommendation is that that you put in something that's fairly generic. So some kind of a one-liner saying something to the effect of, cared for, family situation during, during X period, and as of X date was ready to go back to the market. We had another facilitator who said, hey, if you were a stay-at-home mom, for example, nothing to be embarrassed about. We've got a lot of people since the Me Too movement who've been very welcoming about that. Say, be proud of it, and you're coming back in. On the other hand, that could also open up for some unconscious bias for employers who have some sort of stigma around that. So there's no one panacea answer. To me, the more generic you can make it, the better. Just to simply say, stayed home to care for a personal family situation, ready to return as of X date. That doesn't say exactly what it was. It just says that you were away. And saying family, there's nothing discriminatory about that. Even if you live by yourself, you are your own family, so it's okay. So you're not tripping over any EEOC, protected classes or anything. So that's my opinion on that. If facilitators, any other thoughts on that? Okay.
No.
All right, KiKi.
All right. If you won awards or had accomplishments, can you list them in an accomplishments section, and don't list them as jobs under experience, since the jobs were more than 10 years ago?
I would recommend simply having a section at the end. I wouldn't call it accomplishments. I would call it awards. There's a difference, because when employers see the word accomplishment, they think that it's job related, and then if that is job related, it should go into your experience section. So remember that when you write your resume needs to not be full of job duties and responsibilities. It needs to be full of accomplishments. It's a very important distinction. Situation, action, result. What you did, what was the result? Not what you were hired to do, not what was on your job description, but what did you actually accomplish? What were the outcomes of what you did? So when an employer sees accomplishment, that's what they're thinking. So if it's an award, I would have a separate section at the end saying awards and call them out. But again, if it's a fuller story, you could put that back in your experience section. Julien, any thoughts on your end? Because I know you read a lot of resumes as well.
No, I agree.
Okay. All right, KiKi.
So I think I think we've gone through all of our questions that we have here. There were a lot of requests for a link. I'm going to share that for the people who are watching later and see this as a recording. And that's the link that Julien mentioned. And so those were shared in the chat. So we might capture those notes from the chat and maybe post those along with the recording materials later.
Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is we'll actually get to go into breakouts a little bit early, but before we do, I just want to wrap up this section of our discussion. So first of all, if you guys need to get in touch with any of us, here is our contact information. So feel free to take a screenshot of that, and feel free to share our link with others in your network. And wanted to let you know, remind you guys about the job support groups here in the DC area. But of course, now with COVID, it's all on Zoom, right? So you're around the country, you're welcome to join. Here are just some of the groups that offer free services. There is a career expo coming up on the bottom right there, a group called JCA. I happen to be delivering an advanced LinkedIn training. It's coming Tuesday the 12th at 10:15 Eastern. And I put the link down below if you'd like to grab that. And by the way, just for clarification, because their website's a little bit confusing, it's going to be what's called the Montgomery County Career Fair. Okay, so when you're looking at that page, click on that. You're welcome to join us for that. And I always like to leave with an inspirational quote. And this one says, it's from John. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, and let them not be afraid. And I would say, especially with what happened this week, I think this is a really good message for us all to keep in mind. So with that, we're going to go into speed networking. And in the speed networking, which is a little different than what you guys did earlier, this is really an opportunity for you to share about your situation. So you're going to go around the room and give yourself a couple minutes to describe what I call your tribe, which is your industry or sector or mission, your lane, which is your profession or your occupation, what a great connection is for you, and then make sure to share any job leads that you have with your colleagues. And again, make sure to fill out that networking spreadsheet so you guys can keep in touch. So with that, we'll go ahead and get you back into breakout rooms for 15 minutes, and then join us back here in the main room for a few minutes to wrap everything up. Okay, so here you go. And if you're watching by recording, feel free to fast forward 15 minutes and come join us back in the main room. Ruth, you should have a Zoom room there. I did try to assign you. You look like you're in room 5. There should be maybe a more button at the bottom. If you click on it, you should see breakout rooms there. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Hi there.
Hi.
You look terrific.
I still can't hear you.
I'm going to have to go.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure how to get out without being abrupt about it.
You
Can I just
hit the leave button and you're good.
Okay, great. You look terrific, by the way.
Oh, bless you.
You've done something. I don't know what it is, but you look fabulous.
Oh, bless you. All
See
right.
you soon.
See you
Thanks.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everyone. Hopefully that was a good, rousing networking session. So to kind of wrap up our time today, we'd love to kind of hear any call outs. So any quotable quotes, notable moments, any tips you learned, tips you'd like to share, anything about our session that you'd like to comment on for the future. Wide open, just want to put a bow on everything. So anybody have anything that they'd like to mention before we wrap up?
Well, I would say that we had a very enjoyable breakout session, actually. So yeah, I wanted to put it out there. And also I wanted to ask whether, from your vantage point, do you see any change in the landscape as far as resume or LinkedIn profile are concerned? Is there anything that you have seen that has shifted that people should be, that we, looking for our next gig should be aware of?
I wouldn't say shift. And if you're referring specifically to like this last year, these months, like COVID related,
going from last year to this year, is there
this year?
anything that maybe is done differently than before?
I haven't seen, I mean, of course it's a new year, right? So who knows how things are going to change. I haven't seen per se a shift. What I would very much continue to emphasize is that that employers, especially now, are looking for that unicorn candidate, what we call the purple squirrel, that what some recruiters call the impossible to find person. And the reason is that if they are going to take the time to hire now, it's because they have a unique position to fill and they want the person to come in there, hit the ground flying. Okay, that's just sort of the way that it is. As a result, when you are applying for opportunities, you absolutely need to make sure that your resume is customized with the keywords that are found in that posting. I cannot emphasize that to you enough. You need to scrub that search announcement top to bottom, side to side, every single word. What are the keywords that they're using? What are the keywords that are on your resume? What accomplishments, what are they looking for? Because often they will say demonstrated experience in XYZ. That means please show us your accomplishments in those areas. Make sure that your accomplishments on your resume are labeled with the competency. So let's say your competency is financial analysis, right? Or project management or whatever it is. And there's an accomplishment story around it. Label the bullet just to the left of that accomplishment in bold. So you'd say project management in bold, and then you'd have in plain type your accomplishment story and so forth. So it makes it much easier for the recruiter to kind of do that quick scan. So make sure there's a customization. And as we always talk about, and I'll emphasize this especially for the new folks here, make sure to get an internal champion, somebody in that organization who can champion your candidacy. So you are not just one of hundreds. Can I say that again? Hundreds of applicants, because that's how many people typically apply to jobs these days. You want to make sure that you stand out from the crowd. And so using LinkedIn, popping in the name of that organization into the search bar and looking at the people who work there, see if you can find either, if you have a first level contact there, fantastic, most of us don't, but if you have a second level contact, open that person's contact up, see who your mutual first level connections are, which is right underneath their name. Reach out to that person, see, even if you don't know them well, see if they would simply consider forwarding your resume, your application to the hiring manager for extra consideration. It is, I can't explain to you how important that is to get noticed beyond just the vast amount of resumes that fall into people's applicant tracking system. So that's a very long answer, Jean, but I wanted to take the opportunity to emphasize what I think is really important right now for your search. Okay, so anything else people would like to share?
I just want to say that I cannot more highly echo what you just said. Personal story, this happened yesterday. I had applied for a job that's 2 miles from my house. And I was talking to somebody who had posted it up in a group and said, yeah, I haven't heard anything back, but here's why I think I'd be good for the role. And he's like, and they haven't contacted you? I said, well, I had 2 questions I had to fill out on the application. One had to do with degree and the other one had to do with SPR, certifications. I teach workshops where people get credits for that. So I saw no need to get that cert. And sure enough, my application wasn't even looked at by a human being because I answered no to those 2 questions. It went into, the nowhere pile, right? And so he just simply pinged the recruiter and said, can you just take a look at that person's application? When they looked at my resume, they're probably 4 minutes later, they were actually asking to have a conversation with me today.
Yep.
So it's 100% essential to find somebody who can, you know, advocate, because I would just simply have ended up in that netherworld of rejections, and it would be where they would have overlooked, you know, a diversity candidate for this role because the way their system is set up. So,
and some of you who've been with us for a while might remember about a month or two ago, Kimberly Berry came on the call. She was a long time participant here, and she shared her testimonial of how she found her job exactly this way. She was on this call. She was in a breakout session. She hooked up with somebody who led her to another networking group. She started to go to that networking group. In that group, she happened to mention a job that she was applying for, that she had applied for, never got a call back. She mentioned the job was still open for whatever reason. She mentions it to somebody in that group, and that person says, oh, they are like, I know somebody who works at such and such organization. I'll get you in. Not only did they get her an interview, she got hired. Okay. There is power to this. It is that old adage, it's all about who you know. Okay. It is never more true than in a job search. So really, really use those job postings simply as a data point to know that there's an opening, but do whatever you can to go find somebody who can leverage your candidacy and get you noticed. And more importantly than that, go for what I call the creative hire beyond the job announcement. Because remember, once they put that job announcement out there, it's out there to the whole world. You are now literally competing with hundreds of other people. When you can go around that system and network your way into a company to let an employer know that you exist, that you're the guy or the gal that hopefully is going to help solve their urgent problems. Sometimes there's a creative hire, a job that didn't even exist, but absent of them meeting you, they meet you and like, whoa, had no idea this person with this skill set was right in front of me the whole time. Thanks for letting me know about you. Let's have a creative conversation. Let's have an informational interview. And there are opportunities all over the place that can happen when they recognize your skill set and say, hey, there are problems that we think you can help us solve, and they create an opportunity just for you. It happens all the time. So with that, God bless you guys. Good to see you all. Lovely to have this conversation, and we will look forward to seeing you back next Friday. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.